Thanks for listening to another episode of Beyond the Alert. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Darren LaCasse, Director of Threat Intelligence, Detection, and Response at Elastic. Darren, thanks for chatting with me.
Thanks for having me, Ann. Happy to be here.
So we're going to dive right in because there's lots of good stuff here and you have a lot to share with your peers. When a major incident hits and everything is on fire, what does the first 60 minutes look like for you?
Internally, it's chaos in my head, like, the little internal panic, but externally, calm, like a curious calm, probably to people who are watching, to kind of make sure everyone else has that same energy. People are really nervous, scared, especially if they haven't gone through something like that before. Mistakes happen, and just want everyone to know that, like, this is okay. This happens. This is what we've practiced for, and we're gonna get into it. It's a lot of also communicating up within the organization to make sure everyone knows that what's happening if they're not already aware, and that we've got it right, and communicating that confidence up as well. It's also exciting. I kind of like it. I don't want them to happen all that often, but when they do, right, like, it really shows how the team has been practicing for this, how we've been preparing for this, and then watching them show up is always really amazing.
Do you find that your team finds it exciting as well, or is it hard to tell when you're in the moment or after the fact, I suppose? You find those details out?
Yeah, it's something that we talk about often in that maybe there's something unique or consistent amongst incident responders specifically in that we kind of find joy in this. And we always talk about, like, it was exciting. I really liked it. It gave me energy. Obviously, like, we'd rather not be doing that. We'd rather be doing anything else. But when it happens, when those bad things happen, there's a really weird energy and like among the team, and they feel like it gives them joy.
I always find it exciting asking the guests about this very topic because it's almost as though you're orchestrating a symphony, right? And every moving part has to work together.
Yes. Yeah, very much.
So when a SOC team is drowning in alerts, what do most teams get wrong about how to prioritize?
This is an interesting question, and it's in my organization, we it's like a pendulum. We'll go from way too many to feeling like we don't have enough, and like look at why, and we're always constantly tuning that and trying to get that number right, and not miss anything. What I think people get wrong is that they start with the most critical alert or the most critical alerts and try to work that way. And you're just going to keep treading water forever if you do that. And so I try to bucket them by and suggest people bucket them by, like, let's work on the same one that has like the most, so we can clear out a whole bunch and get this sense of accomplishment and really go start driving down the number, and then spending time with the folks who make those alerts happen for you, figuring out why, right? Like, let's look at the outcomes and use the data that we have at our fingertips about this was not anything that we needed to spend time on. Why are you putting it in front of me? Maybe thresholds are wrong. Maybe there's some tuning that needs to happen. And really looking at not just the flood that we're currently in, but looking historically to see, like, has this been an ongoing problem and it just was an uptick today or in this moment? And how can we solve that and make it better for our analysts? Our analysts want to work on interesting things. They don't want to work on, like, just feeling paper whipping or pencil whipping alerts and just grinding through. That's not fun for anybody. And so I suggest working on, like, taking your biggest bucket that you can work on all at once, getting a quick win, getting everyone some of that energy, and then continuing that, right? Find the next biggest one.
It's really interesting you brought that point up. I haven't heard anyone else think about it this way, or at least talk about it. Even from a business standpoint outside of the SOC, looking at your to-do list, my mindset was always look at the hardest thing first, the most important. But that's exactly it, right? You spin your wheels on it, it takes forever, you feel like you're stuck, and then you look at the laundry list of the other lower priority stuff just piling up. And I recently read in a book on how to use your time better, that's exactly the approach. Check off the easy stuff, get the kind of accomplishment feeling, and then tackle the harder things, right?
Yeah. Yep. And your analyst probably also can look at the queue that you have in front of you, and they might go, "Oh, that critical one actually is important. Every time I look at it, it is important." So there might be an off ramp from looking at the biggest bucket first, but that's how I would start.
So you've built detection programs from the ground up at scale. What is the biggest mistake teams make when they're scaling detection?
I think there's two. The first one is easy to say, documentation, right? Like, why are you making the decisions you're making as you're going along? And that has bit me in the rear end more times than once throughout my career. And so now we spend a lot of time on documentation. Like, why are we building these things? Why is it the severity it is? What is the rubric we use to assign severity, assign priority, and what does good look like? But also trying to do all of the detections at once, and you can't, and you have this fear inside of you probably that if I don't build all the detections, I'm going to miss something.
Hmm.
And I understand that you might miss something, but you're going to miss something too if you don't spend the time to think about what are the most important detections, what are the most important attack surfaces in my environment where I should spend my time building those detections, and really understanding the systems of systems. Like, it's not like I'm going to build a detection for Active Directory and I'm good, right? Well, what happens after Active Directory? What happens before Active Directory? And thinking about the whole chain of what might happen, and what I'm looking for, because I might have better telemetry in front of or after to figure out how we're going to design these detections and put them in place. And so I like go slow. Think about your system and what's important to your business. What would be the most critical impact to your business, and focus there. And the rest will come, right? You're not going to be done with detections ever.
So threat intelligence often feels disconnected from the people doing the detection work day to day. How do you close that gap?
That's a tough challenge, and I don't think I've solved it. If I'm being honest, our detection engineers and my threat intelligence analysts, they're on the same team. We sit virtually next to each other. Translating a threat intelligence deliverable into detection deliverables can be challenging. It's easy if we're just saying, here's some indicators to go put in a search bar or to put in your threat list that automatically gets detection coverage. It's harder when we have behaviors that we're looking for that are identified in a threat report and translating those into detections. What we're seeing right now, or what we're trying and having some good success with, is taking our threat reporting or taking source reports from vendors, putting them into an AI agent that we've built, and say, give me detection rules that we might want to consider as a result, and then checking them against our data lake right away and saying, this works, you have matches, or we got no results, but we also didn't see a relevant index pattern. You might have to go do this yourself. And so being able to take those right out of the report and say, here's some examples. Oh, and we have findings, by the way, that you might want to go triage before we hand it off to the incident response team. That will help us. The skill sets that we have between intelligence analysts and detection engineers are not the same, and they shouldn't be. And so I think that's part of the disconnect. And leveraging something like AI, I think, is going to really help us close that gap, and make this better.
So the agent you build, is it helping with that?
Yeah, I think so. We're getting analysts, the threat intelligence analysts, are able to deliver real detections to our detection team. They can check them. Actually, it's checked for them, but with results and handing it off. And then those are turning into detections that go into our detection life cycle. So just because we have hits doesn't mean they go into production right away. They have to bake for a while.
This one wasn't on our list, so I hope I'm not throwing you for a loop. When you built the agent, a lot of people debate, do we build something in-house? Do we purchase something? What is the biggest takeaway from building that agent that you can give to the rest of the audience of kind of what to look out for or something you didn't consider in the beginning that you should have?
So we built it in house, and the things that we started with was just being too generic, and saying, here's like a threat article from a vendor. Tell me what I should care about. That doesn't scale, and so we have to have some way to see if this is relevant to our organization or not. And so one of the things we've done is give that agent access to um, our vendor lists, our software asset inventory, and our vulnerability data. So it can say, you have this software in your environment, or you have this vulnerability in your environment. So it's relevant to you because of this. And so that's really lessened the noise, because we're ingesting hundreds of news articles that this agent is looking at on a regular basis, and it's able to filter out like relevant or not, to our organization, leveraging some of that. data we have about our organization. And that's really helped.
So detection engineering feels like it's becoming its own discipline. How do you see that role evolving?
I feel like it's been a discipline for a very long time, but only in really big organizations, right? It's maybe in the last year or two becoming a thing that smaller organizations are becoming aware of and having. How it's evolving, I think, changing from building detections by hand to building detections that are assisted by AI to help, again, speed up delivery and time to value. But I also think going from, I think of them as static detections. Others will talk about them as atomic detections. Something that's more dynamic. So taking the aggregate of a bunch of detections that you have, and figuring out how to apply a score to those that says, now this is something I need to spend time looking at. Now this is something worth investigating. Whether that's entity analytics or some machine learning or AI assisted scoring system. I don't know what that's going to be. Probably some combination of all of those. But that's how I see it changing. And so we're going to spend time building more detections than we normally probably would have. We're not ever going to look at those individual detections, but we will use them as signals to influence what we do look at.
So, on that topic, AI is everywhere, as we all know. It's very noisy. Out of all of that jazz, what is real and what is hype? And this is such a broad question, so whittle it down to whatever you like.
Sure. I'll start out saying that I didn't believe in this 2 or 3, whenever years ago this started happening, and we were just making new memes faster. I was like, this is dumb. And I was like, there's no real application for this. I've since come around. And I think that everything that we see being talked about today is is real. And if it's not, it's going to be, in 6 months, someone's going to figure it out. The LLMs will catch up, or will just get there. The things that I see that are really real is like multiplying the human instead of replacing the human. And so taking, anybody and giving them a superhero cape, and giving them like magic wand to help go do more of what they really like, and enabling the creativity out of people, instead of just working on alerts.
Yeah.
So I think it's all real, and if it's kind of on the edge today, it'll be real before we know it.
Yeah, it was interesting. When we started out 2 years ago from a vendor standpoint, there was a lot of friction in the market of, oh, you just want to replace me.
Mhm,
But at the end of the day, we look at AI from a standpoint of it's really there to your point, right? It's that superhuman cape to empower you
mhm.
and save you from the stuff that's just really noisy or creates the alert fatigue, for example. But it's really the human working in combination with AI that is the best component versus either or.
Yep, completely agree. Like, and getting rid of the crap we don't like to do, right? I don't want to go look up results in Virus Total and other places every day. I want to just have that right in front of me. Let me make decisions faster. So that's what we're getting.
Awesome. So that leads right into the next question. When you're looking at the day-to-day job of a SOC analyst, how is AI changing that? And not in theory, obviously, but in practice.
I think it's making their life easier, and letting them be more creative, more curious about the environments that we work in. Instead of just how can I get through all of this as quick as I can, I have a whole bunch of the tedious work that I had available or that I had to do before just done, right? And it's consistent now. So um, that lets me use AI to help train on what we've done before, to learn and be better, to help me be better. Um, but then our analysts are able to go be threat hunters, to go learn more about our environment, to see what blind spots we may have, from a logging perspective, or from like what does our AI environment not know about that could help me even more. And so spending time solving hard problems is really really interesting to me as far as what is now being unlocked for our analysts to do instead of just alert machines.
Which is almost linking back to one of the initial questions where you mentioned that it's when incident occurs, it's fun for you in a sense, right?
Mhm.
or interesting, and you're in the moment. And I wonder if the future of AI combined with humans in cyber allows the humans to really, to your point, right, focus on the more strategic components, the more exciting aspects of the role, so that the job as a whole becomes more interesting again as well.
Yeah, I hope so.
Cool.
Yeah.
So when AI handles more of the tier one work, you hinted at this a little bit or brought up a couple of pieces of this. What should human analysts be focusing on instead? And do you feel as though teams are making a shift in the right direction there?
I'll start with the last part. I don't know that people are making the shift in the right direction yet. I don't think a lot of organizations are probably where they want to be in this journey. They're still thinking about how do we even use AI on this journey. But for us, we're going to be spending more time building capabilities. So instead of having to go into AWS as an example and find the right host and click 18 buttons or whatever it is to isolate, how can we make that better? How can we make that experience faster and just bring it closer so the human is in the loop to press a button and the agents can go do the work? How can we learn more about, and then we'll spend time, how can we learn more about our environment, how we do deployments of software to our customers? And what does that look like? And where are the potential gaps in our knowledge, in our coverage? And how can we document that in a way that then is useful for not only my peers, but for our AI agents as well to help with that kind of work going forward. So I think that's where we'll spend our time.
The flip side of that, burnout is a real crisis, obviously. Everyone talks about it. Our founders in this vendor space typically say, ah, that topic everyone's so aware. Why are we still discussing it? Right. And at the same time, teams that you have, the people are constantly searching for solutions because they've had it. So, what are leaders getting wrong about protecting their teams?
I think we're getting everything wrong, probably, in that we're not we're not psychologists, we're not human resource people, and so we try to solve it ourselves without bringing those kind of experts alongside of us. And so I try to share like and be very vulnerable with my team when they're feeling this way about how how I've dealt with this and how this is like a real problem. Like it's not fake, it's real. And it has severe impacts on people's ability to have a good quality of life, feel good about waking up and coming to work the next day, all of those things. I chat with my HR representatives about this and like, hey, what resources do we have available? I recommend always like seeking professional help. Remind people to take vacation. And I'm terrible at all of these things myself. And so I acknowledge that when I'm chatting with people and say, like, I'm on this journey too, and I'm trying to get better. And so, like, I'll be like, my vacation balance is way too high. And so I'll go I'll take a vacation to set an example. And even if it's just I'm staying at home. And I really try to, when I do that, disconnect because work's hyper connected. My phone is, with me all the time and when Slack pings, my natural reaction is to like, "Ooh, let's see what's happening here." Um, and so I'm getting better, and people are noticing it, and they're following those same patterns. And so I think living the example of what you want it to be is really important, but also finding people to bring in and help with that as well. So if someone is experiencing burnout, what resources do we have to bring to that person as an organization? What can I do as a leader to you know, help them? And we don't know yet what the right and organizations all handle it differently. Every leader brings their own perspective, whether or not they think it's real or they've experienced it. I think also influences that, and so it's something to be mindful of. It's really hard to notice too sometimes because people will try and just like push through and you might actually see their work going up instead of plateauing or flattening to try and like just push through it, and that makes it even worse, I think. So just being really mindful and plugged in with your team and creating that environment where they feel safe just talking about how they're feeling.
And it's tricky. It's almost a catch-22 even for me and my team because I see them working so hard, so I don't want to let them down. So I do what you do, which is like, there's a Slack message on my day off. Let me make sure they have what they need. But then I'm not a good role model and I'm burned out, right? And they do the same thing with me. Oh, she's off today. Let me try to pick up more slack. So I'm making them more exhausted. But I'm hoping or I think there's a massive potential with AI because the more AI can help out with the day to day, regardless of, industry or department, hopefully the burnout is less and we don't just keep piling on. I think where HR then really comes in is to make sure as well that we don't just say, okay, I have 3 hours free. Let me just fill that up right away, right?
Yeah, exactly. AI will be a huge benefit here, especially once the teams feel the safety of using it, right? Like it's not here to replace me; it's here to help me.
Yeah, for sure. When I was talking to our internal stock analyst yesterday, we had a company offsite this week, and he said, well, when I worked at an MDR, if I wanted time off, I really wouldn't take it to the last second. When I was burned out, it was too late. I couldn't take enough time off, but I'd have to go and find somebody to fill in for me for my team. And so we had this massive guilt of, I don't want to pile on to this person's plate, right? So we all just kept working. And I think that's a really tricky situation to put your team into.
Yeah, that would be just awful. Like, you won't find me working at an MDR if that's the situation I'd be in.
Exactly. So how do you build a team culture where people feel safe saying, "Hey, I missed this. I made the wrong call," or "Guess what? I'm shot. I need a couple days off and it's okay."
Yeah. Well, I think, like we said, demonstrate it yourself, and just be vulnerable. Not you don't have to take all the time off in the world to demonstrate it, but just talk about how you're feeling, how things are impacting you, and just openly and encourage others to do that. And then when it comes to like the creating safety around, I did this wrong, or I didn't do it right, or I missed a thing. Um, One of the things I always talk about is just do what you think is right based on the data you have available right now. You're going to make wrong calls. I've made wrong calls, and I share stories of when I got it wrong, and like what was the actual impact of that? Well, email was down for the whole company for like 12 hours. That was not a great feeling for me, but I still kept that job. And we talk about everyone else kind of shares. Oh yeah, I did a thing, and we kind of as a team get together around that. But I always encourage them, document everything you did, that everything you had, why you made the decision you did. If it's in our case, like I'm going to back you up every day of the week, of why you made that decision. Now, afterward, we might talk about how we could have done that differently or better. But it becomes a learning opportunity. It's not a scolding opportunity. Like we're all adults. We're all doing our best, and sometimes we just don't have the information or the background to make a decision. And if we're the only one working, potentially, and your playbook says do X, or you don't have a playbook, in the absence, you're going to do what you think is best, and we're going to support them. And so, just talking through that process, demonstrating it, and making it real for them. And I think until you make it real for them or someone else on the team the first time, it's going to be hard, to get there. So you need that first oopsie, and maybe you make it yourself. I don't know, to show it off.
Great point. So what does a high-performing SOC team look like and what separates good ones from great ones?
High performing SOC teams are over communicative. They're chatting about what they're seeing. They're sharing what they're seeing, because oftentimes, especially in the SOC, if you're working on alerts or cases, you might be, like, have your blinders on for your event or the case you're working on, and your peer might have their blinders on for the case that they're working on, without ever putting together that they're related. All right. And so just talking about what you're seeing, surfacing those things, sharing what's like needs to be updated in a playbook. Um, those are really good SOC teams. I think just, and curious. Like if you have people who are curious, ask questions and feel free to ask questions. You're going to be moving from that good to great, thing. The constant wanting to improve as well, and do better. People that have, a sense of urgency and feel ownership over what they do, really moves the needle to the right as well, I think. So, finding those people who give a darn, is really important.
So the security industry has a skills gap problem. What's holding back the next generation of practitioners and what should change?
I don't think we have a skills gap problem necessarily. I think we have, a perception problem from the employer side in, in what we expect from young junior fresh entry level roles, and we need to figure out how do we bring them in and how do we build them up. I went to college. There was nothing about college that prepared me for the real world of the jobs I had.
It's all theoretical.
Yeah, and we had all this theory. We had hands-on labs, but those were labs. They were specially curated for to enable success, right? In a very 1, 2, 3 orderly way. That's not how anything works in real technology deployments. And so I think as employers, as leaders, we have to adjust expectations, and we have to know that we are going to need to spend more time with those people than we do with other folks. And it might not seem right because you probably want to spend time with your high performers because it's really exciting and they're doing cool things. But if you want those people to feel like they can take time off, not get burned out, you have to be able to spend the time with these more junior analysts and help build them up, help unlock their curiosity, show them what's possible. And so I think we have the problem. We talk about it as a skills problem in the industry, but I don't think that's the problem. Maybe it's partly the problem for the hands on, like knowing what it's actually like in the real world. But I really think we as employers don't want to spend the effort to do the work to build these people up.
The investment long term versus short term, right?
Yep. Yep.
It's also on the student side, right? You go to school or grad school, undergrad or grad school, and you say, "All right, so I'm going to get all this hands-on training. We'll have these internships," and you don't get a lot of support on that front of the real world and the day to day. And then you have a rude awakening, and then to your point, the flip side expects you to be an expert, but you have to get the shot to work your way there, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I spend a lot of time on Reddit looking at I don't know what the subreddit is, but people asking like, "How come I can't get a job?" Right, and trying to give advice and steer people and review resumes because sometimes just like I look at a lot of resumes and there are some where I'm just like, oh, right, and no one's helping them with that either. And so just trying to help out wherever I can.
No, I'm sure that makes a huge difference. It's really disheartening. I always think when it's tough to find that first gig, right? And no one's
Yeah.
it's an abyss. It's just an empty void and you don't ever hear anything coming back.
Yep. Yep.
So 5 years from now, what does the SOC analyst role look like in your mind? And what should practitioners be doing to stay ahead of that shift?
I don't know the answer because everything is changing so fast. I was chatting with one of my colleagues, and I was talking about how like big shifts in our work and in our industry were happening in like decade. Like okay, you could not have to learn anything for a decade, and then it was like 5 years, 2 years. We're like at 3 months time frames now where everything feels like it's changing and it's changing in very significant ways. Where we're now offloading work to AI for level one triage, right? And getting our analysts kind of all of the information they need up front. I think we're going to see more of that, but less human in the loop. And in 5 years, the SOC analyst role will not look what it looks like today. I think we will see more folks who are being agent managers. So maybe we all need to move to Hollywood and get our 15% cut. But really understanding how to manage those agents, checking their output, making sure that the output is correct, and then what is the next, like what else do we need to add into our agent environment? And that's probably 2 years away, right? 5 years is I don't know what that will be, but it's going to require an analyst to not only be an expert in their security domain, but an expert in how do I manage agents, right? How do I tune them or change them, and how do I test the outputs after I've done that tuning and testing, right? We're going to move from you're just a security person to you're a security person doing QA work.
And that's fascinating, right? Because you hit the nail on the head. There is no class, coursework, nothing on managing agents. It's a whole new thing we have to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel behind.
I'm sure we all do. It's like light years and seconds, the speed of things. Sneha Rejmi, one of my former podcast guests, She said, "I every time I go to a peer group or a gathering with other security practitioners or leaders, I always ask them, 'What's the worst incident you had?' And I said, 'It's really interesting. And how do you even get an answer? Because a lot of that has to be redacted, right?' She said, 'Sure. But those are the best learnings because I asked them, why was it the worst? Why is it still giving you goosebumps? What are the learnings so I can avoid them?' So the same question goes over to you."
There's one event that comes to mind anytime someone asks me about this, and obviously details are behind black bars, I guess. But it was how the threat actor got in and how we made a mistake on the first victim, and we didn't see the pivot to the second victim once had landed, and so we had destroyed the evidence essentially on the first one of like who patient zero was. We didn't know anymore. We knew who patient one was after we had discovered it, or victim one, and so that gives me goosebumps, and that led to many months of response activity, where we were operating 24/7 and just seeing threat actor like hands on keyboard mistyping commands and like fixing their mistakes in our logs as we were trying to figure out where they were and where they were going was exciting and kind of chilling at the same time. Like, oh, they're in here, right? And this is going to be a lot of work to clean up kind of what they've done. But to watch the threat actor also pivot to being very brazen and targeting our security team directly with like new lures, new very good lures, and their personal emails and personal like text message were getting received. That was interesting too. So that's like sticks in my head. Sleeping on the couch in the sock and waking up when we saw them come back online. Right, like these threat actors this was their day job, and their day was our night.
Oh,
So
of course. I always think it must be both frustrating and fascinating at the same time because you have to figure out how they think and what their next move is. And usually you're a step behind, right? At least.
at least, yes, exactly.
So when you finally figure out, it's probably relief and victory, and at the same time, the woof, what a mess, right?
Right. Yeah. There's a big like you figure it out, or you finally evict them, and you get this. At least I do. Like this weird, calm, like almost like an adrenaline rush at the same time. Though, like we did it, but you're also like, oh, it's over.
It's probably what keeps you coming back for more, right?
It is. It is It's so fun, but also you kind of wish you weren't in it at the same time.
We're lucky to have people like you because not everybody could like that and live like that. And I think it's always fantastic to see the different types of personalities and backgrounds you all have. So really cool. We're on to the last question, well, second to last question. So towards the end, we always ask a question from the last guest. This time it was the SOC leader, Austin Amran from Command Link. And he said, if you didn't look for a degree, what's the one role that you would look for in a resume that would stand out to you? And it doesn't have to be a role per se, but what is that person you would want to hire on the spot? And you've hinted at this a bit throughout of, you have to be curious and different personality aspects you look for. But what is it something weird they've done, something different that stands out because they bring a new approach to the job? What would that be?
I think it's someone who can demonstrate on paper that they've solved a real like business problem creatively. So, like if you're an organization and you have legacy technology and you have to integrate it with something new, but there's no out of the box solution for that. And you figured out how to do it and get it done in a way that solves that business need. That's what I look for. Like someone who's actually trying to understand the problems that are in front of them and can solve it it doesn't even have to be creative, but can solve that. Um, Generally, I see them in very creative ways, but also communicate like how they did that because those people will be very successful in any role that they do. But if they're interested in incident response or SOC work, they'll be like a little unicorn.
Handle that one seamlessly. All right, you're up. So, what would you like to ask the next stock leader?
So in the SOC, metrics are king, right? To say we're being effective, but I find that metrics in the SOC create bad incentives, and lead to poor outcomes. So I'm always trying to figure out what the golden metric is for our SOC. So what metrics have you found that are creating positive incentives within your SOC to drive real security outcomes.
That's a good one, even from a vendor perspective. All right. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you if they'd like to connect with you?
Sure. I'm most active on Twitter. It's still Twitter, and I'm at StiltsNet. Otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn just with my name, and I'm on Twitter with my name as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you to all of our guests.
Thanks for having me.